afternoon were Jim Spud Murphy, and among those who lay in wait from 8:15 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon were Jim Spud Murphy, Jim Crowley, Jack Hennessy, who was wounded in the engagement, Ned Young, Pat Donovan, Tim O'Connell. Joining these legendary boys of Kilmicheal in the 7-day studio tonight are other survivors of that West Cork Brigade, Michael Crowley, Christy O'Connell, Dr. Eugene Nudge Callanan, and the man who commanded them then and commands our attention now, General Tom Barry. General, you are among the happy survivors, and who in this studio tonight do you miss most?
Well, before I'd answer that question, I would like to say, Brian, that we're only a sample here of the fighting men of West Cork. And Kilmicheal was only one of many, many engagements. Now, you were good enough to bring us together tonight and to allow us to meet again. But I would like to say that we are only a representative of a far, far bigger body. Now, I suppose 2/3 of the fighting men of West Cork are dead and gone, but still 1/3 of them are there. And these men are not forgotten tonight by us, their comrades who are here. We are in the happy position of being survivors, and nobody can tell why any one of us survives. But I want to say just one word. I know our time is limited. That without the men in the battalions and the companies, and without the other fighting men who are not here, and without the help of the Comnaman, and above all, the people, the poor people of West Cork, who stood behind us through thick and thin, there'd be no survivors here. And this battle and this fight right through during the period from the end of 1919 or beginning 1920 onwards was one in which we lost 64 men killed altogether, and they are in our thoughts tonight. But I want to make it clear, we're only a sample. Now, with regard to the fight at Kilmicheal, it was probably the bloodiest fight in Ireland. Because the West Cork Brigade column, from the time it was organised, it never mounted an attack on the British military, police, TANs, or spies or informers or anybody else. That it didn't mount the attack from 5 to 7 yards range. And I think that was one of the main reasons of our success. And another reason, of course, was that the type of men that did form the West Cork Brigade, that they were men who were dedicated men, and men who had proved in their lifetime, and many of them by their deaths, that they were men who were not going to remain members of the subject race. Now, we'll have to go on to the Auxies. These were all commissioned.
For a second, General, if I may interrupt, let's ask Pat Donovan, what was it like? Do you remember waiting that Sunday?
Yeah, we were a long time waiting because I had to wait so long already.
Do you remember what you thought about? Had you shot at a man before?
What?
What were you thinking about as you waited there?
Oh, we were waiting for the lorries to come on. That's what we were thinking about all day. We were waiting all day. And that's what we were thinking about the whole time. Never know when they come on.
Spud Murphy, were you nervous that day?
I was never nervous in my life.
Were you less nervous after the event than before? Put it that way.
I was nervous before or after it.
Nudge Callanan, you weren't there, but why do you think the Auxies had to be knocked?
Well, because they were terrorising the countryside, and if they weren't met at that stage, I don't know what happened to fight.
And yet for a long time there wasn't fighting, Jack Hennessy. For a long time people apparently were prepared to simply sit underneath it. What made people in West Cork different, would you say? Or were they different to people elsewhere in the country?
I would say that at that time, towards the end of 1920, the pressure was mounting, and that these people, these Auxies, had gone right through Ireland, burning and shooting and pillaging. And they had to be stopped. And the position that was selected to stop them was either they would come out of it or the IRA would come out of it. None of the two lots would come out of it, because these would have taken no prisoners to Macroom, and they had to be stopped. And I, for one, anyway, would have been satisfied to lose 10 men to wipe out the 16 or 17 of them. And of that, we were proud that we were able to do it, even though we were men without experience in the main. We were men that had never met these fellows before, and we were men that were suffering from a fear of these chaps, that they had gone through Ireland terrorising and shooting and killing, and we were wondering, if we didn't stop them, could the country take them? There were 1,500 of them there, backed up by some 30 or 40,000 troops and by I don't know how many thousand black and tans. But these fellows were the ace terrorists. The morning of it, there was undoubtedly a tough baptism of fire, because outside one or two of the men who were at Kilmicheal, they had never been in action before. And they got a tough time, because they started marching through rain, and from the rain, it froze as soon as they got to Kilmicheal. And they knew, and they were told at Kilmicheal, that either they or the other fellows would come out of it. As it happened, these fellows didn't relish close quarter fighting. And most of the fighting finished up on the road. Now, there was one problem, and the problem was how to slow them down. And we had luck. The ball hopped our way. And we had the luck of deciding that an officer would stand on the ditch facing them as they came along in full equipment and that. Map case and bomb and the rest of the thing. Uniform. Volunteer uniform, of course, not British uniform, as the British tried to say. And that they'd be bound to
slow down.
To slow down. We didn't want to stop them altogether, but to slow down so that they'd investigate. And they did slow down. And they came, and the bomb was thrown, and a gun opened on them. And with a lot of luck again, the bomb landed 25 yards or 30 away, while they were coming on down to it. It landed in the front seat. That gave us the advantage of surprise. In guerrilla warfare, surprise and mobility and toughness of men. Now these men, the test not alone was of their courage of these men who fought there, but there was a test of endurance and toughness, because they marched all night through rain. They had nothing to eat all day except one bastable cake was sent down, and a bucket of tea from poor people who probably gave us what they had themselves. And they had to stick out. It started to freeze, and some of their clothes got stiff. But they stuck that out, and they fought a battle, and it was a vicious battle and a bloody battle. And it was hardly a fair battle to put men who weren't experienced in warfare in against these bunch of terrorist toughs who ranked and whose ranks were given. They were wearing medal ribbons, DSOs and MCs, whose ranks were given in their death roll when they announced the 17 dead, as captains up to colonel. They were commanded by a colonel. Well, I'm not going to go into details because we haven't much time. But they got a test again then. They had to march back, and they had to sleep in their clothes that night inside in a cottage, lying on straw, some 12 miles the way we went back across Man's Bridge and into an empty labourer's cottage. Well, these men, actually, after what happened, the British left them there for a good many hours, and they knew they were ambushed, but they didn't come out because they thought we had a large force. Now, we had all the rifles in the brigade, which is about 36 at the time there. We captured There was 17 rifles there and 34 revolvers and a few bombs off them. And we got the most important thing, their notebooks. And I might say now, for a public record, that every one of them that was searching for information, they carried a flask full of brandy, which they had looted.